Hello everybody, this is a Mighty Glue Stick. My name is AJ and today is time for another Monster Ecology video. This is yet another playable race and we are going deep underground for this one, right down to the forbidden zones of the Underdark, the true Underdark, to delve deeply into the lives, lore and secrets of one of the more xenophobic, aggressive and lesser known playable races. The Grey Dwarves, the creations of Duergar, the enemies of other races, the Duergar. There is a little sidebar mention of them in the player's handbook describing where they live and how the surface world generally interacts with them. Plus, it informs us they have innate magical abilities. But today, we are going to learn so much more about them. So, first off, what do they look like? Compared to dwarves of the shield, gold, hill and mountain variety, Duergar are thinner. Though still stocky and short, they have lean, iron-hard muscles and all receive a +1 to their strength attribute as a racial bonus. The males are bald, though they can grow facial hair, generally thin and wiry, and don't spend a lot of their time decorating it with braids and beads and such. Females can grow a ring of thin black, grey or white hair, which at best is wispy, and on a human you'd say it's a receding hairline, though for Duergar, this is just the way it naturally grows. They never have a full head of hair and don't grow a lot of body hair either. They have grey skin, which blends in very well with rocky walls, allowing them a measure of stealth naturally, and they typically don't clad themselves in layers of armour and padding like other dwarves tend to do, adding to the impression that they are much more slightly built, along with the fact that they move with a greater degree of grace and fluidity than the dwarves do, which is kind of incongruous if you are used to the way that dwarves move. Bear in mind that in the Underdark, it's generally warmer than on the surface world. There's not a lot of atmosphere and things to move heat around, and the heat emanates from the core of the world. So the deeper you go into the Underdark, the hotter it gets, which is also true of Earth. In later editions of the game, Duergar were far more hairy and gained the ability to grow quills, spines of rigid hair-like stuff that they could flick at opponents. Personally, I'm not overly fond of that idea, and I ignored it and can continue to ignore it. You can include it if you wish, passing it off as some sort of fiendish corruption among isolated clans. Universally, the Duergar are dour, humorless, grim, stoic, and joyless, only exhibiting some modicum of happiness when engaged in hard work with others of their clan. Showing emotions other than grim determination or furious wrath are culturally discouraged, and as we will learn, could result in an individual becoming exiled, which to a Duergar is a fate worse than torture, mutilation, or death. They do not play games, they don't sing songs, make artwork, decorate themselves, their crafts or their homes. They don't even make their food particularly palatable. To a Duergar, all decoration is wasted time and they place no value in aesthetics or artistry, only in practical design and reliability. This extends to the way they dress and the way they talk, which is utilitarian and plain, blunt and terse. Duergar often seen with the face and body tattoos. These are not decorations, they are markings of shame, gouged and stained into them as a form of punishment, and they don't take great pride in them. Frequently a form of Duergar who disagree with their society's mores and customs, who don't fit in, will commit petty crimes which result in them getting these tattoos and such, to the point where they become exiled. Branding and ritual scarification are slightly different, and the priests of Duergar are known as Thuldars, or Thuldors, and have a lot of them, receiving as part of their brutal initiation rituals of the faith, including a brand of a broken crossbow bolt, the holy symbol of their god. Somewhat unusually for Dungeons & Dragons race, Duergar are monotheistic. They believe firmly that Duergar created himself out of the void. He created the world and he created the Duergar, and only the Duergar. All other races, all other living things were created by a Duergar called the Lone Craftsman, in an attempt to honour Duergar by recreating the creation of life. The Lone Craftsman, as the doctrine goes, laboured tirelessly to replicate Duergar's work, and each time The result was not good enough and was thrown out of the workshop to skulk off into the world. Then, finally, the lone craftsman created the dwarf. It was taller, more robust, and of brighter countenance, and he presented it to Duergar, who was furious. "Insolent fool! Do you think you can improve my work by creating a life greater than your own? You do this for your own glory, not mine." Duergar then struck the lone craftsman and turned him into a blithering madman, without patience, skill, or talent, and he was thrown out into the world with his other creations to become the race known as the Dero. So, as far as the Duergar are concerned, and this is something that's very important to remember about the way they are, the way they're raised, their culture, how they think as individuals, and as a core belief of their race. To a Duergar, all other creatures are mistakes. They are inferior creations that their god did not approve, and they are a blight on the world, spreading mad ideas and infesting the world above with light and chaotic, filthy forests, diseases, foul cities, religions of outright lies that deny the truth the Duergar know. And as for the dwarves, the Duergar hate them. They loathe them. They look forward to the day when the last of them is a memory that can just fade away. They work toward a day when the world is returned to darkness, the sun's blotted out, there's nothing but them toiling at the forge and foundry for their one true god, Duergar. The history of the Duergar has been rough. They've delved the deepest of all dwarven people into the Underdark, and they encountered two of the worst species on the planet, the Aboleth and the Illithid. For eons, thousands of years, they have been enslaved by the Mind Flayers, and this played as much a part in shaping them mentally and physically as anything else. They are more finely attuned to psychic energies thanks to their conditioning and selective breeding by the Mind Flayers. Plus, they live closer to the regions which border the weakened planet boundaries between the prime material, elemental chaos, and the far realm, which some Duergar exhibiting psychic powers from birth, and all good Duergar are able to draw on shadow powers to render themselves invisible or channel it into magical growth. Along with superior dark vision out to 120 feet and advantage on all saving throws against illusions or being charmed or paralyzed, all Duergar of 3rd level or higher can cast enlarge, reduce on themselves once per day with no material cost, and they can do this only to enlarge themselves or shrink back down at the end of it. By 5th level, the Duergar gain the power to turn invisible once per day, while they stand in any form of darkness, or at least not in direct sunlight. They're also disadvantaged on attack rolls and perception checks when exposed to direct sunlight thanks to their superior adaptation to living in complete darkness. Their realms, generally speaking, their cities and things, are illuminated only by firelight and things that they use in forges and stuff. They don't use magical illumination a great deal. So, yeah, it's dark. Duergar guard outside of vaults or fabulous treasures they produce tirelessly for the god, and will automatically be alerted to the first sign of a torch or magical illumination being used by an adventuring party, so beware. One of the things that Duergar pick up from their extended stay with the Mind Flayers is slavery, and to this end they frequently raid the surface world or weakened communities of their underground enemies for new slave stock, which they sell to the other underground races or put to deadly work in the deep mines and exploration missions into ancient giant vaults and ruined lost cities of the deep below. They do have a number of cities which are strictly forbidden entry to all but Duergar, and day-to-day life is ruled by the Thildor priests, who are also basically the law enforcers and community leaders. To the Duergar, there is no such thing as secular. Everything they do is a matter of ritual, and even the daily grind of their punishing work they do is all devoted to their god. The Thildor, as mentioned, are selected from the strongest Duergar, male and female, and subjected to initiation rites and rituals, featuring a lot of physical and mental suffering and incredible feats of endurance, culminating in a ritual where they are chained between 2 crushing rocks and left there for a week. Understandably, many acolytes don't even survive to become the worthy clerics of Duergar, but those that do are fanatical, dedicated, and devout. They have no problem enforcing the faith and act as judge, jury, and executioner in their communities. As far as the Duergar are concerned, their god made them a certain way for very good reasons, and deviations from it are not tolerated. This even goes so far as appearance. So almost all Duergar are born with pitch black, very dull, flat eyes that give them an unnerving stare, but some are born with white or even pale grey eyes, and this can lead to them having their eyes burned out of their skull with hot iron rods. Or they are exiled after an upbringing where they face constant scorn or are treated no better than slaves. It may well be that the Duergar you are playing, or simply encountering living on the surface world, has too much hair or lighter coloured eyes or some other mutation caused by exposure to elemental or far realm emanations and has taken to exile rather than further disfigurement or death. The Duergar speak Duergan, a dialect of Dwarven, or the language spoken by the more common Shield Dwarves, which is heavily influenced by Mindflayer and Drow words found in Undercommon. They may speak Terran to better deal with elementals or one of the languages of their enemies, such as Drow, Goblin, Orc, Giant, Draconic, etc. Duergar trade with other races when they have to, but they deliberately select the second best crafted items and the worst of what they produce, and even so, it is eagerly sought and traded for by other Underdark races. The Drow and Duergar hate each other, but frequently trade goods between them, and it's kind of a funny relationship. The Drow pour scorn on the workmanship and clearly superior Duergar goods. The Duergar despise the haughty elves and their insults, even though they only offer the second best for trade. Still, it's true that the items made by the Duergar are exceptionally well made, if completely lacking any form of decoration. The items the Duergar don't trade, though, are the finest crafts to be found in the Underdark, outside of the forbidden vaults of the giants, or the technological marvels of the alien illithids, which are just creepy. Laudagwr is a god that is not adverse to working with lawful evil fiends, and sometimes sends them as representative creatures to his faithful, so some fiendish crafted items can be found in the hands and vaults of the Duergar, and you may occasionally find a bearded devil or a barbed devil or even a pit fiend on very rare occasions. When Thuldor casts a planet ally spell, they are most likely to get a fiend sent to their aid by Laudagwr. Oh, and the favoured holy weapon of the Thuldor is the Warhammer, which is also the most common kind of weapon the Duergar warriors use, along with all kinds of weapons favoured by rogues and assassins, since they're extremely stealthy. So you may have an interesting reaction to a tiefling showing up in a Duergar community. Of course, they're outsiders and therefore unclean, but they may also be a representative or servant of Laudagwr. So they may well be given a hearing or a chance to speak, because they may just well be a divine messenger of some kind. In these cities and anywhere the Duergar work, they chant monotonous, repetitive prayer phrases, only a few sentences long, usually over and over and over again, and they work for many long, grueling hours, day after day, with the concept of a weekend or a day of rest being quite a foreign concept to them. Duergar take time off to eat, sleep, recover from injury, or to give birth, and that's about it. They don't celebrate birthdays. They can't even comprehend why anyone would want to throw a party. They don't indulge in vices, generally speaking, though individuals may do so secretly, and being exposed for doing so is, as you would imagine, going to be very harsh. Living so deep in the Underdark, the Duergar are some of the most skilled and knowledgeable navigators and scouts of the deep places, and they know their way around abiatorials Underdark very well. Their maps and guides to the underground world are one of the best of their treasures and well guarded, with the sharing of this knowledge with outsiders being a serious crime in their society. Duergar work secretly and with great duplicity and cunning to pitch other races against each other, profiting from the sale of arms to both sides, and at the end of the conflicts immediately attacking the remaining weakened faction in great force, taking them as slaves or slaughtering them all and concealing all involvement with well-honed skill. Testament to this skill is the fact that most people believe that the Drow are the greatest threat aside from the aberrations in the Underdark, if they even know about them, when in reality the Duergar are a danger to all life on the planet. Superb crafts and no aversion to magic means that the Duergar commonly create stone golems, magical traps and conveyances, including artifacts that channel raw elemental power, using the rune magic of the ancient giants, and in many ways they retain a lot of the style of the fire giants in some of their most well-established cities, not in decoration, but in practical application of architecture and technology. Duergar make many unique magical items, including absorbing shields, bolts of battering, and stone reaver axes, along with many items devoted to stealth, protection in battle, and shielding the mind from psychic attack, for very good reason. One of the greatest and best known cities is the City of Blades, called Graxelstug. It is located 5 miles beneath the Evermoors, as well as beneath the Desaran Valley and the Uthcard Ancestors Mound, called Flint Rock. Underground, it's about 100 miles away from Menzoberranzan, across the Dark Lake and beyond, the caves in the Sword Mountains, and tunnels from Baldabur's Rest and Yata, tunnels from Luskins and Mithril Hall, and via a major trade route from Skullport through the Labyrinth, all lead to the City of Blades, or at least pass by the City of Blades. So it's pretty, well, it's kind of central. Graxelstug is a cavern city and a subterranean port. It has smelters and foundries mingled amongst stalagmites. The cavern slopes down on the eastern side to join the Dark Lake, which is quite large, and connects a lot of places through waterways. Laudagur's Furrow, also known as the Cleft, splits the city in half, north to south. Bridges connect the higher city to the lakeside districts, and the west side is strictly off limits to foreigners. The air is full of coal smoke. The sound of ringing metal can be heard from every door, every hour, and the chanting of the Duergar to their god forms a constant murmur in every street and dwelling. The city is mainly home to Duergar. There is a sizable minority of Dero who live there, including a ruling council that had a great sway in the past, called the Council of Savants, as well as a number of Durzagon, Orogs, and Stone Giants, and there's a clan of Stone Giants there as well, who are kind of important. And a third of the total population consists of slaves, namely goblins, shield dwarves, orcs, snurfneblin, and humans. And the current ruler is King Horgar Steelshadow V. Finally, a look at the history on Toril. Initially, the Duergar were a clan of shield dwarves in the dwarven kingdom of Barrak-Hur, located within the ancient realm of Shanatar. Clan Duergar, which venerated Laudagor as their patron, was an ambitious and powerful clan, believing that they should lead the kingdoms of Shanatar themselves. So they're always kind of up themselves. When they were denied following the Second Spider War, the clan Duergar turned away from the other dwarven clans, paying only lip service to Shanatar's rulers. This proved a mistake when the mind flayers of Orindal, seeing the isolation of Barrak-Hur, attacked the realm in minus 8,100 Dale Reckoning, enslaving or killing most of the population. And, of course, many dwarves thought they were completely lost. During their captivity, which lasted for generations, the mind flayers performed many cruel and unusual experiments on the dwarves, as per usual, and it was during this harsh period in their history when the Duergar's bloodlines acquired a diabolic taint and they emerged as a distinct race. So the grey skin and the different stature and their psychic ability and things like that. Eventually, the resulting race rose up against the captors and gained their freedom from the mind flayers. Now free, the Duergar carved out a new home for themselves beneath the Great Glacier, forming the city of Graxelstug in minus 3,717 Dale Reckoning. The Deep Kingdom and its Deep King spread rapidly through the northern reaches of the Underdark, reaching its peak in minus 2,600 Dale Reckoning before a war with the Quoggoths of Ursandhu-Dunthar caused it to enter a gradual sort of decline, battling the remnants of the nation and urged on by Drow for centuries thereafter. Further to the south, beneath central Faerun, the Duergar established Dunsparin underneath the Orsran Mountains, which grew to encompass the caverns beneath Turmish and the Dragon Coast. And that reached its height in power in minus 1,800 Dale Reckoning when Queen Dera defeated an alliance of Drow from Undrith and the Mind Flayers of Rindral, reclaiming Deep Shanatar and Alatoran. As her divine reward, Dera was raised to godhood by Laudagor, and so she's one of the patrons of their race now. Afterward, however, the Duergar of Dunesperin fell into decline, returning to power following the time of troubles, only to fall into a long and arduous war with the army of gold. So they've got a rich and interesting history, and a lot of their politics is shaped the Underdark because they're one of the more important races, and also as they work against other races, a lot of their actions have long consequences, which may end up leading to a gradual decline in all of the races of the Underdark. As a player character, Duergar are dour and have trouble making friends, since they really do believe in their heart that everyone is working against them. Life is cruel and unfair, destined only to end in betrayal, failure, and yeah, they're just the most pessimistic and grim people you will encounter. If you ever get over that aspect, though, they do have some very redeeming qualities as individuals. Duergar are brave in a fatalistic sort of way. They expect life to end in pain and futility, so why not now? They will walk right into the face of danger with a grim and stoic fortitude, accepting terrible outcomes as confirmation of what they expected right from the start. Duergar don't complain about things. They don't believe anyone cares, and so don't waste their breath on it. They are not easily fooled and do not abide flattery or seduction. They suspect duplicity at all times and are frequently correct. They look on good fortune with suspicion. They're not overly greedy, and are very egalitarian, automatically sharing resources with those they're working with, as it's simply more efficient to do so. They don't become overly attached to possessions and don't have the usual lust for gold and gems common to the dwarves and gnomes. However, they are highly motivated to seek out and acquire magical items of a practical purpose, such as weapons and armor and other means of personal enhancement. Much like deep gnomes, the Duergar player character can be tricky to reconcile with a group, but if it can be managed, they make for very memorable, quirky, and often hilarious player characters, well worth the challenge, and their religion alone is well worth introducing into your campaign. Or if they have turned their way to worshipping the dwarven gods, it'll be a frequent cause of conflict between them and dwarves, because it's kind of weird. You're playing a dwarf who has a racial enmity towards other dwarves, which is fascinating. And, you know, they hate elves by association with drow, who they also hate. And they just generally hate every other species because they're wrong. They're not their kind. Even though they may have been exiled from their people, they still consider themselves to be the only people of worth on the entire planet. Due to that exile and that long period of confinement with the drow, eons long, thousands of years long, where the only comfort and solace they had was their god, their one god, and that has shaped their entire culture. So that's the grey dwarves for you, the Duergar. I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll be back again with another Explorers video midweek. Don't forget, I have a Patreon page, and the entire script of this little conversation will be posted up there, along with some other links. Of course, I draw my resources from Wikipedia and Dragon magazine articles and such. This is from a Dragon magazine Ecology of the Duergar, which was quite fascinating, and so borrowed some artwork and some of the concepts and themes in there. And yeah, I encourage you to research and look into a lot of the lore and history of this, the 5th edition of the world's most enduring and exceptional role-playing game. I'll catch you again soon, everybody. Have a great week.